Hey class, and welcome back. This is week four's video. Last week we were working with adding, subtracting, and multiplying decimals. Now this week we're going to be looking at dividing decimals. And there's not many differences with dividing decimals than just normal division. So hopefully we can hop into that after I go over what our assignments are for this week. So first, things are a little bit different. We do need to do our iReady math diagnostic test. So if you are familiar with iReady, hopefully you used it last year when you were a fifth grader. What it is that it's a website where you'll log in and you will complete your diagnostic test. I believe you'll also be doing your reading diagnostic test as well. So you'll be on there both times for math and reading. Your iReady login should be the first letter of your first name, the first letter of your last name, and the last four digits of your lunch number. Okay, so we'll try practicing logging in. If for some reason it doesn't work for you, make sure you message me and I will get you your username and password sent to you as soon as I possibly can on Schoology. Some people's usernames and passwords are a little bit different, but almost everybody's is what I just said. First letter of your first name, first letter of your last name, and the last four digits. And your password's the exact same as your username. So again, let me know if you have any issues with that. The second assignment that I want you to be working on in this week is the decimal quiz. So what the decimal quiz is that it looks at adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing decimals. So use last week's video and this week's video to help you out. And I also made it's optional, but it's a quizzes review. If you've ever done quizzes before, it's kind of like Kahoot. But what you're going to do, I'll give you the code later on in this video. You're going to go to the website, put in our class code, and you can take a review of about 10 problems that deal with all four of those types of decimal problems. And that's a good way to review for your decimal quiz. Okay, so those are the three things that you can be working on this week. The first two are the ones that are actually going to be graded. So the math diagnostic test and then the decimal quiz. Those will be going into your grade book on Schoology. The quizzes is just a way to review. It's only there to help you. Okay, so for any of those assignments, if you have any questions, make sure you let me know and I'll be able to help you out. As always, here we're going to start with a warm-up. Our warm-up today says a recipe calls for 2.25, so 2 and 25 hundredths cups of milk for each batch of pancakes. Jamie would like to triple her recipe. How many cups of milk will she need? So let's think about this. For one batch of pancakes, it takes 2.25 cups of milk, so 2.25. Jamie wants to triple her recipe. So what do you think we would do here? Take a minute, pause the video, try this warm up out, see if you can get the right answer. And then when you're ready, play the video again and we'll go over it together. Okay, so let's try this out. Again, it's 2.25 cups of milk for one batch, just one, but Jamie wants to triple her recipe. So tripling just means that you're going to take whatever it is and multiply it by 3. Or you could take 225 and add it 3 times, right? But we're going to use multiplication because it's quicker. What you do, remember the way we multiply decimals, is that you put the one with the most digits on top. So we have 2.25, which is 3 digits, and just 3. Which one goes on top? 2.25 does. So let's write 2.25. That's on top. And we're going to multiply that by 3 because we're tripling the recipe. 5 times 3 gives you 15. So you write a 5 here and a 1 up top. 3 times 2 gives you 6. Well, add this 1 gives you 7. 3 times 2 again gives you 6. So that doesn't mean that Jamie needs 675 cups of milk. That'd be a lot of milk. Remember, the last thing you need to do after you've multiplied with decimals is figure out where does that last decimal go. And the way we do that is we look at our factors. And our factors are the numbers that we multiplied. The way we figure out where we place our decimal in our final answer is you want to count the number of place values after each decimal in each factor. So in this factor, 2.25, here's our decimal. Let's count how many place values are after it. 1, 2. So we have 2 for the first factor. And is there any decimal with this 3? No. So that's just 0. So in total, that means we need to move our decimal in our final answer. 2 plus 0 is 2. So 2 places from the right to the left. So you just hop over once, twice, and there you go. That's where your decimal goes. So you have 6.75. So what that means is that Jamie, if she were tripling her recipe, would need 6.75 cups of milk, or 6 3/4 cups of milk. All right, so hopefully that helped. So let's try a division problem, okay? And again, before we get started, we're going to take it slow. But division with decimals isn't much different than what you've already been doing when you divide like normal. Okay, so I'll show you the things that are different and we'll work through them. So here's the first example. It says a tortilla bakery makes 863 packages of tortillas to sell to restaurants. So they're making all those packages of tortillas. Each restaurant receives the same number of packages as a complete order. How many restaurants can receive a complete order? And me inside this box, it says 18 tortillas are in one package, right? So if we have 863 packages and there's 18 tortillas in a single package, we want to figure out, well, how many restaurants are getting these packages then? How many restaurants can get complete packages? Okay. So what we need to do is we need to take this 18 and divide it into our 863. So the way we do that, 863 is our dividend and 18 is our divisor. These are fancy words for meaning 18 is the number that is going to be divided into 863. Okay, and it's a big number, but we'll estimate and get our way there. Okay, so let's think about this. Again, I'm going to use the word estimation. 18 is really close to 20, and 863 is really close to like 900 or so. So 20 times what gets me close to 90? Well, 2, 4, 6, 80, right? So 20 times 4 gets me close to 90. So 18 times 4 has to get me somewhat close to 86, right? So let's try 4. 18 goes into 86 about 4 times. Let's see how many. 18 times 4. 4 times 8 gets me 32. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 3 is 7. Well, 72 is pretty close to 86, so we'll keep it. So I write that there, and I want to subtract these numbers. 6 minus 2 is 4. 8 minus 7 is 1. Then I want to bring down my 3. So let's use the same logic that we did last time. Again, 18 is pretty close to 20. 143 is close to 140, right? So 20 times what gets me really close to 140? Well, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So 20 times 7 would be 140. So 18 times 7 has to get me really close, right? So let's put a 7 down. Let's do the same thing. What's 18? I'll do it over here. 18 times 7. 7 times 8 is 56. So I put a 6 here and a 5. 7 times 1 is 7, plus 5, 12, right? So 126. Well, that's pretty close. Let's write that down. So if I subtract these, I'm going to have to borrow. This becomes a 3. This becomes a 13. 13 minus 6 is what? Good, 7. 3 minus 2, that's just 1. 1 minus 1 is just 0, so I'm not going to write a 0. So that means that 18 goes into 863 47 times. I don't have any numbers I can bring down now, so I'm left with just 17. So what we're going to be practicing is that we could keep going and dividing until I have no remainder left. And the way we do that is we add a decimal and a 0, and we bring it down until we don't have any remainder, and we keep on dividing. Or one thing we could do, we take our remainder, because maybe you're used to writing 47 remainder R, so R stands for remainder, 17. You may be used to writing this in 5th grade. We want to change from that to starting to have either a decimal or a fraction. So we're just going to do a fraction this time. When you're in this situation, the way you write your final answer as a fraction, you take your answer, which is 47, you take your remainder, and we draw a fraction bar. Your remainder goes on top, and your divisor goes on the bottom. So this turns into 47 and 7/18. So that's a whole lot neater, and it looks nicer than 47R17. We want to get away from that R. So your answer is 47 and 7/18. The original question was, how many restaurants can receive a complete order? Well, you can't have 7/18 of a restaurant. So in this example, your answer would just be 47 restaurants because you don't have another complete order. Okay? So this is what we're going to be practicing. We're going to be practicing regular division and then either writing it as a fraction or a decimal. So let's try this problem out. There's no word problem, just a regular old division problem. 180 divided by 8. So we want to set up our division problem. First thing, just draw your division bar. The first number is always your dividend. It's the number that goes inside of this division bar. So you just write it on in there. The second number is called your divisor. It's the one that goes outside of your division bar. So right here, it's the number that's dividing the number inside. Normal division. Let's just divide like normal. How many times does 8 go into 18? Well, the closest we can get without going over would be 2. 8 times 2 is 16. So you write your 16 down here. And then you want to subtract. 18 minus 16 is just 2. Well, we still have the 0 here, so we want to bring that down. 8 times what gets me really close to 20? Well, again, that's just going to be 2. It's the closest I can get. 8 times 2, again, is 16. 20 minus 16 gives you 4. So that means our remainder is 4. So our answer is 22 with a remainder of 4. But again, we want to start moving away from just having a regular old remainder. We want to leave it as either a decimal or a fraction. Now let's show you the fraction first. Again, what you do is you take your answer, which is 22. I'll write that over here. 22. You take your remainder, which is 4. and you put that over top of a fraction bar, and you put your divisor on the bottom. So you have 22 and 4/8. We'll come back to that in a minute. So that's one answer. Another answer you can get is the decimal form. And the way we do that, pay close attention, when you're here and you don't have any other numbers you can bring down, what you do is you add a decimal right here, and then put the decimal up top as well, and then you add a 0. Once you do that, you can bring down this 0 just like you've done before, which makes this 4 into 40. And then you want to figure out how many times does 8 go into 40. So 8 times what gets you really close or exactly 40? 5. So 8 times 5 does give you exactly 40. Once you subtract that, you get 0. So you have no more remainder. Okay, so that means the decimal form of your answer is 22.5. Think about it this way. 22.5 is the same thing as saying 22 and 4/8. These answers are equivalent. They're the exact same. So either one would be correct. You can even simplify this fraction. Let's think about this in terms of like pie or cake or pizza. If I have 8 slices of pizza and I eat 4 of them, then technically I've eaten half of a pizza. So all 3 of these answers are the exact same. Pretty neat, huh? They're all related. 22.5 is equivalent, so the same thing, as 22.5, which is the same thing as 2 and 4/8. Any 3 of these answers would work. Let's try another example. Okay, so for this example, there's 2 different problems we're going to be looking at, because your division problem isn't going to always be just 2 whole numbers that we're dividing. Okay, sometimes you're going to have decimals inside either your divisor, your dividend, or both. So for this first one, we have our dividend right here that has a decimal in it, but our divisor does not. So all we do, we set up the problem just like a normal division problem. Our divisor goes on the outside, so I'll say 12 divided by 8, 0, 9.40. So what I would do right off the bat, we're not messing with decimals or anything yet. Let's just take this decimal and put it at the top so we don't forget about it. Okay? Now we want to divide just like normal. It's a big number, I know, but you want to see how many times does 12, can it go into 8? No, 12 is too big. So you need to look at 12, does it go into 80? So how many times does 12 go into 80? So think of your multiples of 12. 12 times what gets you really close to 80 without going over? Well, it looks like it goes in 6 times, because what's 12 times 6? 72. So you write 7 there and 2 here, and we want to subtract. 80 minus 72 is 8. Now we bring down this 9. And now we need to see how many times does 12 go into 89. So 12 times what gets you pretty close to 89? Well, if we know 12 times 6 gives us 72, and that's kind of close, 12 times 7 should get you even closer, right? And 12 times 7 is 84. '89 minus 84 gives you 5 left. Bring down the 4, so we're going to keep on going. And 12 times what gives you 54? So think about it. 12 times what gives you 54. Well, the closest we can probably get would be 4, right? Because 12 times 4 is 48. So what's 54 minus 48? Well, if we borrow, you get 14 and 4. Oop, that's a terrible 14. 14 and 4. 14 minus 8 gives you 6. Good. And then you bring down your 0. It's the last number we can bring down, so hopefully this goes in pretty close. So 12 times what gets you really close, or exactly 60? Well, hopefully, if you know your multiples of 12, check out a multiplication chart if you need to. 12 times 5 gives you exactly 60. Okay? Which means we don't have any remainder, which is awesome. That's what we want. We don't want a remainder. We want to keep dividing until we have no remainder left. So I know this was a lot of work, but just take it one step at a time. Do your division, do your multiplication tables until hopefully you have no remainder left. All right, so that means that 12 divided by 809.40 gives you 67.45, or 67 and 45 hundredths. That's your final answer. Okay, so that's dividing a regular number, a whole number, into a number with a decimal. Okay, let's try this problem over here. If you look in our dividend, there's a decimal, and our divisor has a decimal. So here's where things get a little bit different. Okay, so pay close attention. We want to set this up just like we would a normal division problem. This is still our dividend. This is still our divisor. Our divisor goes on the outside. So we have 1.40, and we want to put our dividend on the inside, 4.20. Okay, so we can't divide like this. And the reason we can't is because when there's decimals in the divisor, it's very hard to tell, well, 1.40 times what gets me really close to 4.20, right? It's not very easy to understand. So here's what we do. The trick is you take the decimal that's in our divisor and we want to move it all the way to the right until it's a whole number. So how many times do we need to move this decimal to make it a whole number? Once. Twice would give us 140 instead. Okay, so we moved it 2 times in the divisor, which means we move it the exact same amount in the dividend. So if you move it twice in the divisor, we need to move it 2 times in the dividend. Once, twice. So now we're dividing 140 into 420. Okay? So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. You want to work with regular numbers that don't have decimals in the divisor. If you look over here, it was okay that the decimal was in this dividend, the inside number. But if you have a decimal on the outside number, you want to move that decimal an equal amount in both the divisor and the dividend. Okay, because now we can easily work with this number. It's 140 into 420. So 140 goes into 420. Let's chop off these zeros and think about it. 14 times what would get me pretty close to 42? 3, let's just test it real quick over here. 14 times 3. 3 times 4 is 12. So we put a 2 here and a 1 up top. 3 times 1 is 3. Plus 1 is 4. 42. So if 14 times 3 is 42, 140 times 3 has to give me 420, which means when I subtract that, I have no remainder, which is perfect. Okay, so the thing to take away from this problem is that if you have a decimal in your divisor, you need to move it an equal amount in both the divisor and dividend in order to divide. If you don't have a decimal in your divisor like we did over here, just set up the problem like normal and divide. Okay? So I wanted to put a slide in here where we summarized everything we've worked with in the last video and now this video that dealt with decimals. Okay, so feel free, stick around. I'm just going to break down how to add, subtract decimals, multiply with decimals, and then divide with decimals. Okay, let's look at the first one. Just to recap, last week we talked about when you're adding and subtracting with decimals, the very first step that you want to do is always line up your decimals. And what that means is, what I would do is, first thing, draw your decimals. That way they're automatically lined up. And then fill in the numbers. So we have 4.5 plus 0.22. So we have 4.5 plus 0.2 and 2 over here. And it's an addition problem. Step 2, place any zeros in the blank spaces. Well, we do have a blank space right here, so you just add a 0. And now you can add. That's step 3. 0 plus 2 is 2. 5 plus 2 is 7. Our decimals are lined up, so we can just put our decimal. And 4 plus nothing is just 4. Okay? Adding and subtracting isn't too bad. Hopefully you see that it's the same thing as how you've added in the years before, but the only difference is you want to make sure your decimals are always lined up on top of each other. Okay? So next we have multiplying. When we multiply, the very first thing you want to look at is which number, which factor has the most digits. And I don't mean which one has the greatest value, right? Because 8 is more than 0.51, but that doesn't mean that it has the most digits. The most digits mean which one has more numbers in it. You have 0.51, which is 3 digits, and you have 8. Well, which one is more? Okay, the 0.51. That one goes on top. So I'm going to write 0.51. And step 2 says you do not need to line up the decimals. If it happens by chance, that's fine. But you don't go out of your way to line up the decimals. Just multiply like normal, right? This is how you set up a regular multiplication problem without decimals. So do the same thing. Don't add any zeros or anything. Step 3 is just multiply. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 5 is 40, so you write a 0 and a 4. 8 times 0 is 0, plus 4 is 4. My answer is not 408. There's still this last step. Step 4 says count the number of place values after the decimal in each factor and apply that to your final answer. So what that means is you want to look at both of these numbers, okay? You want to see how many place values are after the decimals. So in this factor, here's my decimal. How many numbers are after it? 1, 2. How many, well, is there any decimal in the 8? No. So there are no numbers after 8, so it's 0 because there's no decimal. So 2 plus 0 is 2, which means you move your final decimal 2 spots from the right to the left. So once, twice. So that means my final answer is 4.08. And that's it. Okay, remember to follow these steps. Let's look at this last one, division. Let me move me over here now. So for division, it's what we were working on in the other examples. Step 1 is set up your division problem. Well, here's your dividend. The first number is always the number inside of your division bar. So I have 3.75. And 1.5 is your divisor, which goes outside. Step 2, move any decimal in your divisor, and if you did, you have to move the same amount in your dividend. Okay, so I do have a decimal in my divisor, which means I need to move it however many times to make it a whole number. So I'm going to move it once to the right to make this a 15. So let me erase that. I moved it once in my divisor, which means I need to move it the exact same amount in my dividend. So I need to move it once. So that means that this 3.75 becomes 37.5. Okay, you move it the exact same amount. Before I start dividing, I'm going to put my decimal right here so I remember that it goes there. All right, so now you need to divide. That's step 3. Divide until you have no remainder, or you can create a fraction. 15 goes into 37 how many times? Well, 15 times 1 is 15. 15 times 2 is 30. That's probably the closest I'm going to get. So I'm going to write 2 here, which gives me 30. 37 minus 30 is 7. Bring down your 5. Gives me 75. 15 times what gets me exactly 75 or close to it? Well, 15 times 2 was 30. Double that would give me 60, which is 4. So how about one more than that? 15 times 5 gives me exactly 75, which means I have no remainder. So my final answer is 2.5 or 2.5. Okay, so hopefully that helped. Look back at this chart if you need to. When you're doing your decimal quiz, it can help you out. Remember each step, okay? Maybe write it down and it can help you out. Okay, so that's it for the lesson. Now let's look at on Schoology to see what your assignments look like. So it's grayed out for right now, but you will see week 4 here. When you click on it, this video, of course, is right at the top like always. Here are your assignments again for this week. The first thing is, of course, I need you to complete this iReady Math Diagnostic. You should be doing your reading diagnostic as well. So remember, you want to go to iReady.com, or you can click this link right here and it'll take you right to it. Okay, it's going to come to this page. Your username should be the first letter of your first name and the first letter of your last name, and then the last 4 digits of your lunch number. So I signed into one of your accounts just so that you can see what it would look like. But when you do that, it should take you to this page right here. You're going to do your reading diagnostic, but for me, I want you to do this math diagnostic. So you click here for math, and then right here you see math diagnostic. This is just the beginning of the year assessment. Click it, take your time, but remember, I don't know if you knew this before, you only have a 48-hour window to complete it. So let's say you start it on Monday. You have to work and get it done between Monday and Tuesday. Because if you start it Monday, 48 hours later, when it's Wednesday, you won't be able to complete it. Okay? So once you start it, make sure you have enough time to finish the entire test. Okay? But it has to be done between Monday and Friday. The whole testing window will close on October 2nd. So you can start it anytime now when you're watching the video, but the last time you can start it is October 2nd. So make sure you're getting that done. If for any reason your login is not working, remember, message me or one of your other teachers to find out your iReady login. It's sometimes for some of you it's different depending on who was your teacher the first time you ever logged into iReady. Just message us as soon as you can, and we'll get you your login information. Okay? But don't wait till the last minute. So don't wait till Friday to do this assignment. The next thing I'd like you to complete on Schoology, if you look right below iReady Math Diagnostic, so that's first. The second thing that I think would be helpful for you is this quizzes decimal review. So it says use this as a review before you take the decimal quiz here on Schoology. Try your best and take your time. Each question I gave you at least 5 minutes. I believe the last question, the word problem, I gave you 15 minutes to complete. By no means do I expect you to take that long, but I just wanted to give you enough time to complete it. So what you're going to do, maybe write down this class code before you click on this link, but it's 187-99504. You can copy it, click on this link, and it'll take you to this page right here. Right here where it says enter a join code, you just type in that code and you click join. Please write your name, okay? Make sure it's appropriate. Don't add emojis or anything like that. Just write your name so I know that you actually completed it, okay? And once you're ready, hit start. What it's going to do is it's going to take you through 10 problems that deal with adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing with decimals. It's a good way to review before you take the decimal quiz. Okay, so it can only help you. I'm not going to take your scores, and I'm not going to, let's say you don't do very well, I'm not going to put it inside the grade book. This is a non-graded, just for your help review. Okay. And then, of course, the last thing that does count as a grade is this decimal quiz down here. I know it's kind of small, but don't forget about it. It's due Sunday, October 4th at midnight. Again, click on it, and then it should say start new attempt. There's 14 problems. Click start new attempt, and it all should be multiple choice just like normal. It says 39.16 plus 2.458. I did not give you a calculator option over here. Please, please, please try these problems without a calculator, okay? I'm okay with you solving it by hand, getting your answer, and if you want to use a calculator to check your answer, that's fine. The reason I really want you to try it without a calculator is eventually you're going to come back into my classroom and you're not going to have a calculator. I want you to do these by hand on your own, okay? That way you learn the best and you can learn from your mistakes. I'm not saying don't check your answer with a calculator, but at least solve it first without a calculator, okay? I want you to learn these concepts because we're going to be doing algebra and all that kind of stuff later on, okay? So that's it for this lesson. As always, if you have any questions, please, please, please get in contact with me. I've been getting messages from some of you, but remember, it's this little icon right here, the envelope. All you do is you click on it, you click new message. This little window will pop up. You say my name, DODSON, and I'm right there. Send me a message, anything that you're curious about. If you have a question or you need your login information, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. It goes to my, of course, my computer. It goes to my email. It also goes to my phone. So I'm pretty good with messaging back as soon as I can. Just I'm here to help you. Okay, if you're confused on anything, even if it's just on another class or something, I'm here to help you. Okay. All right. So as always, be safe, take care, message me if you need me, and I'll see you in the next video, okay?